and package savings up to $26.83. Hurry, time is running out.
Next time on Cheers.
Hey, everybody!
Eddie's flying off on a new job.
Yeah, you know, at least you won't have to worry about renting a tux, Eddie.
But Carla's left behind, grounded.
You're not afraid to fly, are you, Carla?
Me?
See, now all we have to do is get Carla up in the air with somebody who knows about these things. Well, like her friend Fraser. Oops. Will anybody earn their wings? You'll see next time on a high-flying Cheers.
Monday at 6:30 on Channel 5.
When Frank got sick, some doctors thought his illness might be service-connected, but nobody really knew. We were down to our last dime when this letter came from the Disabled American Veterans. It said they were coming here to talk to people who needed help. When the DAV van pulled up, it was like the cavalry coming to save us. The DAV led us through the system. It turned out Frank was eligible for more compensation. The DAV is always there to help vets and their families. That's what the DAV is all about.
Donald has these enormous arms, and he has the tattoo of a Sherman tank on his right bicep. And he's flexing this muscle, and the tank keeps getting bigger and bigger.
The Princess of Tact is at it again.
Miss Sensitivity.
I just get so excited talking about it.
Oh, good morning, Major Houlihan.
Good morning, Major Burns.
Morning, Princess.
Good morning.
Listen, Pierce, why don't you and I go out on the town tonight, huh?
Well, this is so sudden, Frank. I don't have anything to wear.
Well, I mean, get a couple of nurses, go over to Rosie's bar, have a little fun, huh?
Sounds good to me.
There's this little red-headed nurse who's had her eye on me, and tonight her wish will come true.
You mean that new girl with the freckles on her nose?
Yes, that's the one.
She's a little young for you, isn't she, Major Burns?
Oh, I don't know. I thought a little youth might be nice for a change.
I think the convoy just took a direct hit.
Excuse me, I'll just go finish my letter.
You need any help holding up your pen?
Really got her on that one, didn't I?
Last year, you helped give this homeless man what he was desperate for. A little warmth at the Salvation Army, funded through your local United Way.
You're watching Channel 5.
A new round of Japan bashing set off by scathing criticism of American workers by a Japanese legislator.
Yeah, I mean, who is this guy? I mean, this guy doesn't even know our workers. He's not from our country, and he says stuff like that.
From blue-collar workers here.
The average guy that works around here really puts his heart and soul in his job. Does a good job at it, too. And to hear that kind of stuff, that's good.
To presidential candidates.
You know, it's nice to know what they really think of you after all these years.
This was the week that America told Japan, enough. But what if some of the Japanese criticisms are true?
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
The problem with playing to the home crowd is that it feels so thoroughly satisfying at the time and seems so stupid in retrospect. And that applies equally to doing it in Japan or here in the United States. It is the equivalent, since I can hardly let this week pass without at least one reference to the Super Bowl, it is the equivalent of Joe Gibbs publicly trashing the Buffalo Bills before leaving Washington, or Marv Levy mocking the Redskins before flying out of Buffalo. Professional coaches, football coaches, who know enough about simple psychology not to provide their opponents with newspaper clippings to plaster on their lockers. A great many Japanese and American politicians and business leaders are apparently not that smart. It may be that some of what we and the Japanese are saying about each other these days is actually true. Probably both nations could profit from a little constructive criticism. But with all the infantile huffing and puffing that's going on both sides of the Pacific, neither side is listening much to the other, which has led, as John McKenzie now reports, to the kind of week we've just witnessed.
One Japanese commentator calls it the new Pacific War. Americans bashing Japan. Americans retaliating. It started at the beginning of the week when the Speaker of the Japanese Parliament, Yoshio Sakurauchi, blamed America's trade problems on lazy workers who make defective products.
Yeah, I mean, who is this guy? I mean, this guy doesn't even know our workers. He's not from our country, and he says stuff like that. So we decided to honor people that buy American.
Sakurauchi, who was once Japan's foreign minister, said, American workers don't work hard enough, but demand high pay. The quality of American labor is poor. And he warned if America doesn't watch out, it's going to be judged as finished by the rest of the world. The attack made headlines across the U.S. One newspaper even likened it to Pearl Harbor.
The Japanese say that we are really not that competent. We're not that bright. We can't read very well. You know, it's nice to know what they really think of you after all these years.
At this Detroit auto parts plant, where the average pay is $8 an hour, workers resented the criticism.
And I think we do a very, very good job. We put out the best brake pistons and automobile parts there is. Better than theirs.
They want to talk about our product and how bad it is. Well, why don't they let the Japanese consumer decide? Why don't they open up their market like ours are, like our market's open?
Open, but showing signs of closing. Example, the town of Greece, New York, said it bought a Japanese-made excavator for $40,000, but will now return the vehicle. It's looking for an American-made model, even though it could cost the town $15,000 more.
I think it sends a message, maybe not to the Japanese leadership, but certainly to people in the community and people across the state, saying that American workers are just as good, if not better, than the Japanese.
It now turns out the so-called Japanese model made by the Komatsu company is actually built by Americans in Ohio. In California, another contract canceled this week, this time for electric rail cars.
I think it's only fair to point out that the Japanese have built their transit systems for the Japanese. The Italians have built it for them, for the Italians, the Germans for the Germans. Certainly, surely, Americans can build a system for the Americans.
Coming under intense public pressure, Los Angeles County canceled the $122 million contract awarded to the Sumitomo Corporation and announced plans to put up a factory and build its own cars, creating as many as 740 jobs in Los Angeles.
This is not about Japan bashing or any other kind of bashing. This is not against any people. This is for America.
That's also what they're saying in Major League Baseball after the city of Seattle went looking for Japanese investors to keep the financially troubled Mariners in Seattle. Under the plan, the Yamauchi family, owners of the video game maker Nintendo, would have a 60% interest in the baseball club. But Commissioner Fay Vincent said last night that Major League Baseball has a strong policy against investors from outside the United States and Canada. Whether long-held policies or knee-jerk reactions, this was the week many Americans said no to the Japanese. Some, openly angry, even tried to launch a counterattack. In Detroit, they demonstrated at a Toyota dealership. While at this service station in St. Louis, anyone driving an American-made car got discount gasoline. In Warren, Ohio, business leaders have gone so far as to give their employees cash incentives to buy American cars.
3 distinct body styles here.
The subsidies range from $200 to $600. Called Jumpstart America, there are now about 140 companies involved, including the local McDonald's.
It's a real bonus for our employees, and at the same time, it's a real plus for the economy.
It allowed Kathy Chandler to buy this Oldsmobile using $400 donated by her boss.
It really helped. I used it as a down payment.
The program is spreading. This week, the Monsanto Chemical Company began offering its 12,000 workers a $1,000 bonus for buying American cars. Chrysler Chairman Lee Iacocca returned from Japan earlier this month, urging Americans to get tough with the Japanese.
We do not have idiots running General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, or our suppliers. And our workers are not lazy and stupid. I think it's time to make Japan not only understand the rules, but to start playing by them. And it might even be time to change some of the rules.
With the backing of the big three automakers, Richard Gephardt and 27 other Democratic congressmen introduced legislation this week requiring Japan to reduce its trade surplus with the U.S. by 20% a year, or the U.S. would restrict Japanese auto imports. Today, Japanese Prime Minister Kiichi Miyazawa tried to ease the tension. In a nationally televised speech, Miyazawa praised the United States for its support of Japan after World War II and said it was now time for Japan to help the United States. The Parliament had already pledged its support. It announced this week it planned to buy American cars, specifically 2 Buicks.
Park Avenue, from Buick, the new symbol for quality in America.
Whether fair or not, increasingly Japan is becoming the target of American discontent. But the question is, where is it leading? In the midst of a recession, is this latest Buy America campaign a grassroots form of patriotism or protectionism? And could it lead to the all-out trade war that both countries fear? This is John McKenzie for Nightline in New York.
When we come back, we'll be joined by one of America's most outspoken entrepreneurs and by one of the harshest critics of Japan, by Ross Perot, chairman of Perot Systems Corporation, who says America has one of the least educated workforces among the industrialized nations, and by Congressman John Dingell, who represents Detroit and calls American workers the most productive in the world.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by DuPont.
Recently, DuPont announced that its energy unit Conoco would pioneer the use of new double-hulled oil tankers in order to safeguard the environment. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. DuPont, better things for better living.
I've got the flu and I ache, but I don't take aspirin anymore, or Tylenol. I choose Advil. Advil stops my headache, reduces fever, and relieves the aches.
Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
I can't remember. It was something new.
Nicoderm, nicotine transdermal system.
Yeah, it's called Nicoderm. Oh, yeah, the patch. Nicoderm, huh? Yeah, it's a patch.
Nicoderm, nicotine transdermal system.
With a 24-valve V6 engine, the new Lexus ES300 sports sedan will undoubtedly give you an incredible amount of confidence. Fortunately, it has a sophisticated anti-lock disc brake system for when your sanity kicks in. And with a price like this, you'd be crazy not to see Bet's Lexus Des Moines.
Sunday, White House Chief of Staff Samuel Skinner faces the Brinkley panel on the economy, the presidential campaign, and the State of the Union, Sunday.
Joining us here in our Washington studio are Congressman John Dingell of Michigan, chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, and Ross Perot, chairman of Perot Systems Corporation, who spearheaded the fight for educational reform in his home state of Texas. I know that Americans at the moment still lead the world, Congressman, in terms of productivity, but the way things are going, if our educational system continues along the lines that it is, and I think this is the thrust of the Japanese criticism, it won't be that way for much longer.
Well, it's only one of many criticisms the Japanese make of the United States.
Well, let's focus on that one for a moment.
Well, I think Mr. Perot deserves a great deal of credit for what he's doing and saying. Our effort in the area of education has slipped in the last 12 years. Massive cuts in education, massive cuts in support for education at the federal level, shifts of expenditures from the federal government to the state and local units of government that have impaired the ability of state and local units of government to provide necessary education. Lack of leadership in Washington has been a very major problem. Lack of leadership at a lot of the state levels has caused significant problems. And as a result, there are real problems in the area of education which are hurting us. But this is only a part of it. Unfair trade practices by the Japanese are a major part of our difficulty.
Well, as I say, let's see if we can take it step by step. Mr. Perot, as we focus on the slippage in education in this country, how damaging do you perceive that's going to be for the American economy as a whole, for American business and American trade?
It's a major factor. We used to be a huge landmass, a small population. We were loaded with minerals and natural resources, and we could always go west. We've now pretty well occupied the landmass. We've used up a lot of the minerals and the natural resources. During that period of time, our public school system was the envy of the world. Now we're at the brains and wits phase as a mature nation. We like to think that we're the last superpower. We can only be a superpower if we're an economic superpower. If you doubt that, look at Russia. Now, we must have the finest educational system in the world. This gives our country another competitive edge. Now, I agree with Congressman that we need to clean up the trade practices. I feel that most of those problems are self-inflicted wounds, and that they've out-traded us year after year after year. They've out-lobbied us. They've bought and paid for half the town here in terms of the talent. But we do have a lot of work to do in the educational field. The sooner we start, the sooner we'll finish. Talk won't do it.
Let me focus on what you've both been talking about there. You know, no one is holding a gun to the head of the American consumer and saying, you've got to buy a Honda, you've got to buy a Toyota, you've got to buy, you know, whatever other Japanese product it is. We're buying it. We, as a nation, are buying Japanese products because we perceive them to be a better bargain for the money. No?
Well, in some instances, that's true.
In some?
In some instances.
Give me an example of where it isn't.
Well, if you look at automobiles, you'll find, for example, the Cadillac is the best, and has been so picked.
So why aren't Americans buying it in over the Lexus, let's say, or another car that would be in the same price category?
Let me give you an example. In many instances, the Japanese sell at huge losses in this market. They close their market so that they can make enormous profits in their own. They make something like, they have something like $12 billion profit in automotive trade inside their own market. They have huge losses in their trade in the rest of the world, especially inside the United States. They dump, they sell below cost, not just in autos, but in everything. And if you look at the findings of the International Trade Commission, time after time, they've pointed out that the Japanese close their markets, exclude American goods, target, dump, violate customs laws, and things of this kind. The International Trade Commission is not a group of rabid protectionists. They're good appointees of a Republican administration.
Let me turn to Mr. Perot. If indeed what the Japanese are doing is they're selling cars over here and selling those Toyotas and Hondas because they're dumping them at a lower price than they're actually selling them back in their own country, presumably we could and should do something about it. But is that the sort of thing we are simply raising as an excuse for our products not being as attractive to the American consumer, or is it a legitimate concern?
I think it's a simple fact at this point in time that a huge piece of the American market will tend to choose foreign products, not limited to cars. Now, this goes back to what the consumer wants. We live in a tiny little world. We're stuck with international trade, whether we like it or not, in international competition. With our $3.5 trillion going to $4 trillion debt, it is fundamentally important that we make the finest products in the world. Now, we're dancing between two subjects. I think we'd agree we must make the finest products in the world in order to keep our country a strong, stable country and provide jobs to millions of our people so they can pay the taxes so we can keep going. Okay. Now, but we get involved in trade negotiations. And this is where the Japanese out-trade us. Again and again and again and again, we give away the store. I think if you study this situation, you'll see a huge part of that takes place. One example, took $3 million one time and got trucks declared cars. That's like getting an elephant declared a horse. Then, when they got them to the lot, they got them redeclared trucks. $3 million one time, that saves them $500 million a year. The big three fought it. Customs turned it down. The Secretary of Treasury one day gave it to them, and I still can't get anybody to tell me why.
You're saying they were out-lobbied? Congressman, we're going to have to take a break in a second, but if you can, in about 15, 20 seconds, what happened in that particular instance?
Mr. Perot is right. They even made the Customs Service apologize. They've changed the definition of those vehicles not once, but twice or perhaps 3 times, on absolutely no basis that you can discern. For other purposes, they're still classed as directly opposite what they ruled they happen to be.
And you can't figure out either how and why that happened? They pay somebody off or what?
It cost us about $250 to $500 million a year in lost customs revenue. I don't know whether it paid off, but Mr. Perot said it. This town is just full of people who are working for the Japanese.
Gentlemen, we have to take a break. We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
Where do you want to be in 10 years?
Detroit to Minneapolis, Minneapolis to Detroit. That's not why I became a pilot. I'll tell you the run I want. St. Thomas to Saba Island. With my own Grumman Mallard. Call it Dave's Airways. That's what I want for my investments. Now, how do we do it?
You can get there from here with Shearson Lehman Brothers.
Do you have a cold?
Yes, I do.
Here's 2 cold medicines. This relieves these 3 symptoms, this 9. Choose one.
9.
You chose Dristan Cold over Sudafed. Try it.
The Dristan really works.
Dristan, the face of relief today.
For the battery that performs 3 times better than industry standards, you've got to get to Sears.
Out here, if you don't have a Die-Hard, you don't have a prayer.
Sears Die-Hard. More power when you need it most.
Who's going to back you better than Sears?
This is it. Your last chance to get 2.9% financing for 48 months on all 91 and 92 Escorts. Hurry, it's your last chance to get this limited time special offer from your Ford dealer. Choose the sporty GT, the spacious wagon, the sleek LX, even the new 92 Escort sedan. 2.9 financing for 48 months on any new Escort. You can't beat the savings. Now is the time to buy. See your local Ford dealer because this is your last chance.
Hammer hosts the award show that's too legit to miss. The American Music Awards, Monday.
It's us and them. Nazi sympathizers, abusive daycare centers, fly-by-night sweatshops, Sawyer, Donaldson, Wallace, Rose, Shadler, Chase, Quinones, us and them. Primetime, Thursdays.
I must confess, I thought I was going to get a lively disagreement and debate between the two of you, but during the break, you were saying one of the main reasons you think things are going wrong is that we have political hacks, I think is the term you used, taking care of our trade negotiations while they have, in effect, lifelong appointees, and you said couldn't agree more.
And they put in the very best people. They support them. Their people are careerists in that. Our people oftentimes either have just come from representing some foreign trading interest or leave very shortly thereafter, after they leave their responsibilities to go work for some foreign trading interest.
Well, explain that to me because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense from a Democrat's point of view or a Republican's point of view. One would think that would be... Sir?
Makes a lot of sense to the individual. You go from making $50,000 a year to making $200,000 or $300,000 a year.
Which individual are you talking about? Guys
that come off all these staffs and come off the trade commissions and come out of the White House staff, 18 off the White House staff, now represent Japan.
And it makes enormous sense from the standpoint of the Japanese.
So you're saying people who have been representing the United States...
It's like changing sides in the middle of a war.
It sure is.
It's like a general going over to the other side.
Nothing illegal about that?
That's what I'd like to get into. I think we ought to have a law against it.
Well, Congressman, that's the kind of thing you specialize in.
Well, there's something we simply have to do about this business about government people who move from government to go out and represent alien interests inside the United States. It was interesting to note that at one point the White House changed the definition of what constitutes a government agency so these people could go out and lobby so that you literally could only lobby you could literally only not lobby your successor in your particular job. That's an example of how bad the situation is. You can lobby anybody else in government.
Let me bring things back for a moment, gentlemen, to where we began, which is with all the bashing that's going on both sides, and what I must say I perceive to be a totally wasted exercise. It gets people all riled up, makes them feel good. We say some nasty things about the Japanese, they say some nasty things about us, but it doesn't really resolve the problem, does it?
No.
Absolutely not.
Are we moving, can we, in this kind of a climate, in this kind of an environment, actually move toward progress?
Well, first thing you got to do is find out what the problem is. Second thing is you've got to come on a rational program to address it. In the case of the United States, we have never really addressed the problem. We're talking about executive compensation. There's all kinds of charges about our workers being slovenly, and I challenge both of those points. But the hard fact of the matter is that we're not addressing the fact that the Japanese are not playing by the same rules.
Well, executive compensation. Let's talk about Lee Iacocca. Makes $4.5 million, heading up a company which is not doing particularly well right now. The Japanese say, wait a second, we make 1/10 of that, 1/16 of that, 1/20th of that, and we're leading companies that are doing extremely well. That seems, on the face of it, to make eminently good sense to me.
Well, accepting it, it's a red herring. I'll be glad to go into it in great detail if you want, but I think it doesn't serve any purpose. That's the question of executive compensation or payment for American workers is something that we've always left to the marketplace, and I think it's proper that it should be done. The harsh fact of the matter is it is done in part by the Japanese and in part by others. some of whom are on their payroll over here, to divert attention from the basic fact that the Japanese are closing their market to us, destroying our industry by doing that, targeting our industries, and they've destroyed industry after industry. I don't care whether you're talking about chips, electronics, television, radio, whether you're talking about machine tools and things of that kind. Almost every single American industry has been severely hurt, if not destroyed, by the Japanese. The only remaining industry that we really have anymore in this country is the auto industry.
Mr. Perot, let's talk about the auto industry.
Well, let's talk about a simple solution to the problem.
Go ahead.
It should be illegal for anyone who's held elective or appointive office at the federal level to ever lobby for a foreign country. Say, because this is the core of the problem. They're spending $400 million a year in this country, and they're getting results. Now,
that is not just true, we should point out, of the Japanese. I mean, so-called foreign agents,
well, that's more than the next 12 nations combined. All right, now, read the book Agents of Influence by Pat Choate, and all these numbers are in there. Now, so you say, okay, let's finally grow up, and if this is the way we're going to play the game, let's go over and hire their people. There's no law against it in Japan. You can't hire anybody in Japan to operate this way because, quote, it would be a source of great shame. Their ethical standards don't permit them to do it. Over here, we're going to have to pass a law because a quick buck is the order of the day, apparently here. Come in, get your resume intact, go off and sell yourself for $200,000 or $300,000 a year to some foreign country. We need to stop that right now, and you will stop the arterial bleeding almost overnight.
Gentlemen, we've got to take a break. When we come back, let's devote the last couple of minutes then to focusing on what you have both raised here. We're in an election year right now. What you say seems to make eminently good sense. Let's ask the question of the day then. Why aren't we going to do it in an election year? We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
Everyone has a dream, a vision deep inside.
When I decide to follow up on an investing idea, I need a broker who's ready when I am.
We make it easier to follow your own lead.
I can call Schwab at any hour, nights or weekends, get the information I need, even place an order to trade.
Always there to give you just the help you need.
Help yourself at Schwab today.
Did you know the cost of 2 9-page fax transmissions from these Philadelphia newspapers to Chicago may surprise you?
I got an exclusive interview
with AT&T Pro Watts. Your business can't get a more accurate way to send a fax.
She talks a lot.
And our prices are extremely competitive. Even though the other company would like you to believe, they always save you lots of money.
Wait a minute. That's news to me. Can I quote you on that?
AT&T Pro Watts, another AT&T advantage.
They won't work in this heat.
They say no AC, no show.
Say you need something set overnight.
Those prima donnas.
There are a few companies you can call. Parts on its way. But say you need it by 10:30 a.m. Guaranteed. There are 2. But only one is so efficient and reliable. And they get it there on time for far less. It's showtime. Which is why to some people, there is only one. UPS.
Alexander's Photo Center is more than just a camera store. Of course, we have new and pre-owned camera equipment, film, photo finishing and accessories, camera repairs, passports, and friendly help. But also you'll find darkroom accessories and supplies, the best custom black and white lab in town, professional commercial photography in studio or on location, plus rental equipment, rental darkroom, and studio for amateurs or pros. Come in and let us help you at Alexander's Photo Center and Commercial Photography, where we offer you more.
As I said earlier on, I expected the two of you to disagree. In a sense, it pleases me more that you have found an area of common agreement that you both say, in many respects, is at the heart of the U.S. trade problem with Japan. Why, Congressman Dingell, we are now in an election year. It would seem to me that some smart fellow is going to get up there and make that a campaign issue and say, if you've been in the government, you cannot then turn around and go to work for a Japanese company influencing some of the same people that you've been working with.
Well, we've been trying to tighten these laws for years. We've not been successful.
Why not?
It's one of the great shames.
Why not?
Very difficult to write a piece of legislation like this that meets the constitutional requirement. It's harder when the lobbying forces are against it and when usually the administration is opposed.
Why in heaven's name don't more people then who are clearly angry about it, or someone who's angry about it, why don't you point to some names?
Okay, very bluntly, all we have to do, you got to remember, Each one of us owns this country. I'm a 250 millionth owner. Everybody listening to this
Actually,
program
you've got a
owns a piece of this country.
little more than your
No,
share there.
No,
Mr.
no, in
Perot.
terms of ownership, I don't have any more than the next guy. Now, if we will put up with all this, we deserve it. And if we will put up with this foreign lobbying activity, we deserve it. And if we are willing to have former presidents go to Japan and make two 20-minute speeches and collect $2 million, we deserve the fact that they have this kind of influence. What we need to do, come home, get our act together, learn to negotiate, make sure they don't pick our pocket, and then on the same time, Act One is make darn sure we start building the finest products in the world, and that starts at the top, not on the factory floor.
But we've got to start here with ourselves, and if this kind of legislation is necessary, tell me if you can in 15 or 20 seconds why in heaven's name we're not trying to get it.
Because too many guys are picking up big checks, and this whole operation up here runs inside the Beltway. There's not a whole lot of communication to grassroots America until you're in an election.
Well, there is still the basic problem that there's never been a will or determination or the knowledge on the part of any of the recent administrations to go and tell the Japanese unfair trading practices. Stop. This is an American nation. We're going to look after the American people.
Congressman, we're out of time. I thank you very much, Mr. Perot. I thank you. Sunday on This Week with David Brinkley, the politics of the 92 vote with White House Chief of Staff Samuel Skinner. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Wednesday, meet David Letterman.
You are not hurt that you were passed over for Johnny Carson's show.
Who wouldn't want to have that job?
Phil Donahue and Marlo Thomas.
First of all, she's a good lover.
And Kirstie Alley.
I would like to thank my husband for giving me the big one. What did you mean?
I meant the big one.
A hot new Barbara Walters special, Wednesday at 9, 8 Central.
On and off snow overnight with accumulations 1 to 2 inches.